Hey there, welcome. In this section, we're going to introduce you to PHP. We'll explore what it is and what it's actually used for. Think of this as our first step into a much larger world. So PHP is a language that helps make websites smart and interactive. Without languages like PHP, honestly, the web would be a very static and boring place. It's kind of the magic that happens behind the scenes when you use a website. Many of the most popular websites you visit every single day use PHP to function, which just shows how powerful and important this language has become over the years. It's a great first language for anyone interested in web development. So, what exactly is PHP? The name originally stood for Personal Homepage, but now it stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. That might sound a bit complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's a scripting language that runs on a web server. When you visit a website built with PHP, the server runs the PHP code first. The code does its job, like getting information from a database or calculating something, and then it sends a plain HTML page to your web browser. This is why it's called a preprocessor. It processes the information before you even see the final page on your screen. This process makes websites dynamic and responsive to user actions. Imagine you're logging into your favorite social media site. You type your username and password and hit the login button. PHP is often the tool working in the background to make this happen. A PHP script on the server takes the information you entered, checks that information against a database of users, and if your details are correct, the script lets you in and shows you your personalized news feed. If they're wrong, it sends back an error message. This entire interaction, from checking your details to showing you a custom page, is a perfect example of what PHP is designed to do. The main purpose of PHP is to create dynamic web pages. A static web page is like a printed flyer. It's the same for everyone who looks at it. A dynamic web page powered by PHP is different. It can change its content based on who is visiting, what time it is, or what actions the user takes. It can show personalized greetings, display the latest news articles from a database, or manage an online shopping cart. PHP gives web developers the tools to build websites that are not just informative, but also interactive and engaging for every single user. It's the engine that powers a huge part of the modern internet. All right, in this section, we're going to explain the basic rules of writing PHP code. We call these rules syntax. Just like any language, PHP has a grammar that you need to follow so the computer can understand your instructions. The syntax of PHP is quite straightforward, which is honestly one reason why it's a great language for beginners to learn. The core idea is that you embed your PHP code directly inside an HTML file. This lets you mix your dynamic instructions with the standard structure of a web page, giving you precise control over every part of the final output that the user will see in their browser. To start writing PHP code, you need to tell the server where the PHP instructions begin and end. You do this using special tags. The opening tag is, and the closing tag is. Everything you write between these two tags will be treated as PHP code by the server. You can place these blocks of PHP code anywhere you want within your HTML document. For example, you could use a small PHP script in the middle of your HTML to display the current date and time. This flexibility is honestly one of the most powerful features of the language. Every single instruction or statement in PHP must end with a semicolon. This is a very important rule to remember. The semicolon tells the server that you've finished one command and are ready to move on to the next one. Forgetting the semicolon is one of the most common mistakes that new programmers make, and it will cause your script to fail. Think of it kind of like the period at the end of a sentence. It provides a clear and unambiguous signal that one thought has concluded, making sure your code is read and executed correctly by the server's PHP interpreter. Another useful feature in PHP is the ability to add comments. Comments are lines in your code that the server will completely ignore. They're there for you and other programmers to read. You can use comments to explain what a piece of code does, leave notes for yourself, or temporarily disable a line of code without deleting it. To write a single-line comment, you start the line with 2 forward slashes. For multi-line comments, you start with and end with. Using comments is honestly a very good habit to develop as it makes your code much easier to understand and maintain later on. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about variables and data types. These are the fundamental building blocks of any programming language, including PHP. A variable is like a container that you can use to store information. You give the container a name, and then you can put data inside it, take data out, or change the data to something else. Variables are essential because they let your program remember things and work with information that can change over time. For example, you could use a variable to store a user's name, their age, or the total price of items in their shopping cart. In PHP, all variable names must start with a $sign. This is a unique rule for PHP that makes it super easy to spot variables in your code. After the $sign, the name must begin with a letter or an underscore, followed by any number of letters, numbers, or underscores, for example, and are all valid variable names. It's really important to choose descriptive names for your variables. Naming a variable is not as helpful as naming it, because a descriptive name makes your code much easier to read and understand. PHP supports several different kinds of data, which are known as data types. The most common data types you'll use are strings, integers, floats, and booleans. A string is a sequence of characters, like a word or a sentence, and you create one by putting text inside quotation marks. For example, hello world. An integer is a whole number, like 10 or -5. A float is a number with a decimal point, like 3.14 or -99.9. Finally, a boolean represents a state of true or false. These different types let you work with different kinds of information in a logical way. One of the great features of PHP for beginners is that it's a loosely typed language. This means you don't have to tell PHP what type of data a variable will hold before you use it. You can just create a variable and assign it a value, and PHP will automatically figure out the data type based on the value you give it. For example, if you write, PHP knows that is an integer. If you later write, PHP will automatically change the type of the variable to a string. This flexibility makes writing your first scripts much faster and simpler. So, in this section, we're going to introduce operators. Operators are special symbols that you use to perform operations on variables and values. You're already familiar with some operators from your math classes, like the plus sign for addition and the minus sign for subtraction. In programming, though, operators are used for much more than just arithmetic. They're used for assigning values, comparing values, and combining logical conditions. Understanding how to use operators is really crucial for writing programs that can actually do useful work, process data, and make intelligent decisions based on the information they have. First, let's look at the arithmetic operators. These are used for performing basic mathematical calculations. PHP uses the plus sign for addition, the minus sign for subtraction, the asterisk for multiplication, and the / for division. There's also the modulus operator, which is the percent sign, and it gives you the remainder of a division. For example, 10% 3 would result in 1 because 3 goes into 10 3 times with a remainder of 1. These operators let you perform calculations within your scripts, such as calculating the total cost of items in a shopping cart or figuring out a user's age based on their birth year. Next, we have the assignment operator. The most basic assignment operator is the equal sign. It's used to assign a value to a variable. For example, the line assigns the string value Larry to the variable. It's important not to confuse the assignment operator with the comparison operator for equality, which is 2 equal signs, and we'll talk about that next. There are also combination assignment operators, like plus equals and minus equals, which perform an arithmetic operation and an assignment at the same time. For instance, is a shorthand way of writing. Finally, there are comparison operators and logical operators. Comparison operators are used to compare two values. These include double equals for equal to, exclamation mark equals for not equal to, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. These operators will always result in a Boolean value, either true or false. Logical operators such as double ampersand for and double pipe for or an exclamation mark for not are used to combine conditional statements. For example, you could check if a user is over 18 and lives in a certain country, which allows for more complex decision-making in your code. Alright, so this section covers control structures. Control structures are a fundamental part of programming that allow you to control the flow of your code's execution. Basically, they let you make your script behave differently based on certain conditions. Without control structures, your script would just run from top to bottom, executing every single line in order. But with control structures, you can tell your script to make choices, to run a block of code only if a certain condition is true, or to repeat a block of code multiple times. This is really what makes your program smart and able to respond to different situations. The most common control structure is the statement. And statement allows you to execute a piece of code only when a specific condition is met. You can extend this with and. The basic structure is, if a certain condition is true, do this. Otherwise, do something different. For example, you could use a statement to check if a user is logged in. If they are, you show them a welcome message. If they are not, you show them a login form. This simple logic is really the basis for creating interactive and personalized user experiences on the web. Here's a simple example of a statement. Let's say we have a variable for a user's age. We want to display one message if they are 18 or older and a different message if they are younger. The code would look something like this. In this case, since is 20, the condition is true, and the first message would be displayed on the web page for the user to see. Another important type of control structure is the loop. Loops are used to execute the same block of code over and over again, as long as a certain condition remains true. The two most common types of loops in PHP are loops and loops. A loop will continue to run as long as its condition is true. A loop is typically used when you know exactly how many times you want to repeat the code. For example, you could use a loop to display a list of the top 10 articles from your website, repeating the code that displays one article 10 times. Okay, so this section is all about guiding you through creating your very first dynamic web page using PHP. We're going to combine the basic HTML structure you already know with a simple PHP script. This hands-on exercise will show you just how easily PHP integrates with HTML to produce dynamic content. To get started, you'll need a web server environment with PHP installed on your computer. Don't worry, you can get one super easily by installing a software package like XAMPP or MAMP. These packages bundle everything you need, including the Apache web server, PHP, and a MySQL database, all into a single, easy-to-install application. First, you need to create a new file. You can use any simple text editor like Notepad if you're on Windows or TextEdit if you're on a Mac. It's really important that you save this file with a .php extension, for example, mypage.php. This file extension tells the web server that the file contains PHP code that needs to be processed before it's sent to the user's browser. If you save it with a .html extension, the server won't execute the PHP code, and the user will just see your raw code instead of the result you intended. Now let's write the code for our page. We'll start with a basic HTML structure, and inside the body tag, we'll add a block of PHP code. This code will create a variable to hold a name, and then use the echo statement to display a personalized greeting. The echo statement is one of the most common commands in PHP. Its job is to output data, like a string of text, directly into the HTML document. This simple command is actually incredibly powerful for generating the content of your dynamic pages. Here's the complete code for your first PHP page. Just copy this into your mypage.php file, less than exclamation doctype HTML, greater than HTML, greater than head, greater than title, my first PHP page, less than slash title, greater than head, greater than body, greater than H1. Welcome, less than slash H1, greater than question mark, PHP $ username equals quote, Alex quote, semicolon, echo quote, less than P greater than hello, space quote, dot $ username dot quote, exclamation. Welcome to my website, less than slash P greater than quote, semicolon, echo quote, less than P greater than today's date is space, quote, dot date, open parenthesis, single quote, y-m-d, single quote, close parenthesis, dot quote, period, less than slash P greater than quote, semicolon, question mark, greater than less than slash body, greater than less than slash HTML, greater than. This script defines a variable called $username, then uses echo to print two paragraphs. The first one includes the variable's value. The second one uses PHP's built-in date function to display the current date. The period, or dot, is the concatenation operator, and it's used to join strings together. When you view this page in your browser through your local server, you'll see the final HTML output. In this section, we're going to explore some of the most common and practical ways that PHP is used to build modern websites. Once you have a handle on the basics, you can start to build truly functional and interactive features. PHP's real power comes from its ability to interact with other technologies, especially databases. This lets you store, retrieve, and manage large amounts of information, which is honestly the foundation of most web applications today. From simple contact forms to complex content management systems, PHP is the engine that drives the functionality behind the scenes. One of the most essential uses for PHP is processing HTML forms. Almost every website has a contact form, a registration form, or a login form. When a user fills out one of these forms and clicks the Submit button, the data is sent to a PHP script on the server. The PHP script can then take that data, validate it to make sure it's correct, and then do something useful with it. For example, it could send the contents of a contact form to an email address, or it could check login credentials against a database to authenticate a user. Another major use of PHP is managing content with a database. A database, like MySQL, is just an organized collection of data. PHP has excellent built-in functions for connecting to a database, sending queries to it, and handling the results. This is how websites like blogs, news sites, and e-commerce stores work. The content, like blog posts, articles, or product information, is all stored in a database. A PHP script then retrieves this content from the database and displays it within an HTML template. This makes it incredibly easy to manage and update a large website without having to edit individual HTML files. PHP is also a key component in managing user sessions and cookies. A session lets you store information about a user and make it available across multiple pages. For example, when a user logs in, you can start a session and store their user ID. As they navigate to different pages on your site, your PHP scripts can check the session to see that they're still logged in. This is how features like shopping carts work. The items a user adds to their cart are stored in their session data, so the cart's contents are remembered as they browse different products on the site. Alright, so this section is all about giving you some helpful advice on how you can continue your journey to learn and master PHP. Learning a programming language isn't something that happens overnight. It really takes consistent practice, a willingness to experiment, and the patience to work through problems. The key is to just keep building things. Theoretical knowledge is important, but you'll learn the most by actually writing code, making mistakes, and figuring out how to fix them. The path to becoming a proficient PHP developer is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. So it's important to find ways to stay motivated and engaged. The single most important tip I can give is to practice every day, even if it's just for a little while. Consistency is way more valuable than cramming. Try to set aside a small amount of time each day to work on a PHP project or solve a coding challenge. Start with small, manageable projects. For example, you might try building a simple contact form that emails the submitted data to you. Then, move on to something just a bit more complex, like a simple blog where you can create, read, update, and delete posts. Each small success will build your confidence and deepen your understanding of the language. Don't be afraid to read other people's code. One of the best ways to learn is by studying the work of more experienced developers. There's a ton of open source PHP code out there on platforms like GitHub. Take a look at the source code for popular PHP projects like WordPress or Laravel. Try to understand how they're structured and how they solve common problems. You might not get everything at first, but you'll pick up new techniques, best practices, and different ways of approaching a problem that you can then use in your own projects. Finally, make use of the incredible amount of online resources that are available. The official PHP documentation at php.net is an excellent and authoritative reference that you'll use throughout your career. Websites like Stack Overflow are invaluable for getting help when you're stuck on a specific problem. There are also tons of tutorials, video courses, and online communities dedicated to PHP. Engage with these communities, ask questions, and share what you've learned. Teaching someone else is honestly one of the best ways to solidify your own knowledge and become a better developer. So here are some final thoughts on PHP and its place in the modern web development landscape. In a world with so many new and exciting programming languages, some people might wonder if learning PHP is still a good investment of your time. The answer is definitely yes. PHP has been around for a long time, and honestly, that longevity is one of its greatest strengths. It's evolved a lot over the years, becoming a mature, fast, and feature-rich language that's more than capable of building modern, high-performance web applications of all sizes and complexities. The sheer number of websites that run on PHP is just staggering. It's the language that powers a massive portion of the internet. Content management systems like WordPress, which alone powers over 40% of all websites, are built with PHP. Major platforms like Facebook, Wikipedia, and Slack all have their roots in PHP. This huge install base means that there's a constant and high demand for developers who know how to work with PHP. Learning PHP opens the door to a ton of job opportunities, from maintaining existing websites to building new applications from the ground up. The PHP community is another one of its major assets. Because it's been around for so long, there's a vast and active community of developers who support it. That means you'll find an incredible wealth of tutorials, libraries, frameworks, and tools to help you build better applications faster. Frameworks like Laravel and Symfony provide a solid foundation for building robust and secure applications, saving you from having to reinvent the wheel. And if you ever run into a problem, it's almost certain that someone else has faced the same issue and that a solution is just a quick search away. In conclusion, PHP is an excellent choice for anyone looking to get into web development. It's relatively easy for beginners to learn, yet it's powerful enough to run some of the largest applications on the web. Its practical server-side focus makes it an incredibly useful tool for creating the dynamic, interactive websites that users have come to expect. By learning PHP, you're not just learning a programming language, you're gaining a skill that's in high demand and gives you the power to build a significant part of the digital world. The journey may be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding.